If you look at the national polls, Donald Trump is down and down big, but our three brand new CNN battleground state polls suggest those races are tight. Trump might still have an opportunity in this race. Let's look first at North Carolina. Always a very close battleground state, and it is close here to the end. CNN ORC polling in North Carolina, 48% for Clinton, 47% for Donald Trump. Gary Johnson a distant third, so essentially a statistical tie, a dead heat in battleground North Carolina, a very close race, both in 2008 and 2012 there. Shapes up that way this year as well. Let's move west. Look at Nevada. This state won big by Obama twice, but look at the numbers right now in Nevada. Hillary Clinton can claim a lead, but again, within the margin of error, so a virtual dead heat. Clinton 46, Trump 44 in Nevada. Why is this happening in Nevada? In part because of this. Take a look. Among Latino voters, Gary Johnson is getting 10%. That was critical to both Obama wins. Latino voters going for the Democrat. Hillary Clinton has a big lead, but she could use some of these votes to stretch it out a bit heading into the final days. Our third poll in battleground Ohio. Republicans need Ohio to win the presidency. Trump especially needs it because of his recent troubles, and a little optimistic news there for Trump supporters, 48 to 44. Again, still within the margin of error, a very competitive race, but a Trump lead in a state he needs to win. Gary Johnson and Jill Stein pulling out the pack. Why is this happening? It's interesting when you look. One of the dynamics we continue to see in all of our polling is an education gap. Look at these numbers. Among white likely voters who are college graduates, in all three of our battleground states, Clinton leads. In Nevada, in North Carolina, and in Ohio. Relatively close in Ohio and North Carolina, but this is critical to Secretary Clinton. Mitt Romney won this constituency 4 years ago. White voters with a college degree. But look on the flip side. Among white voters who do not have a college degree, pull these numbers up, Donald Trump leads, and overwhelmingly so in all three states. Look at that, 25 points there. Wow, 50 points almost there. A big lead there in Ohio as well. So close races in Nevada, Ohio, and North Carolina. How does that affect the map that matters most? The benefit for Secretary Clinton, even though these polls are close, is in the way we have the map now, she can afford to lose North Carolina, lose Ohio, and lose Nevada, and still win the presidency with the states she already has in line. So if you're the Clinton campaign, you still think you can win here. You still think you can win here. And in fact, they think they can still win here. But the benefit of this is Clinton can afford to lose all three of these states and still win. What are the stakes for Donald Trump? He trails right now. Those tight battleground state polls suggest if he can have a strong debate Wednesday night, if he can move North Carolina his way, if he can hold Ohio, build on that very tiny lead, if he can get back into play in Nevada, which is very close right now, that would put Donald Trump in play. You just have to say this. Right now, the map favors Hillary Clinton heavily, but the closeness of those three battleground states suggests if Trump puts in a strong debate performance, there's a chance he could make the last couple of weeks interesting.
And that is John King. The last couple of weeks, interesting. I think this whole campaign has been pretty interesting between the two of them.
That's the understatement,
of the year. Joining me now, Democratic strategist Dave Jacobson and Republican consultant John Thomas. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here with us.
Sure,
always a pleasure to see you, and
Likewise.
I love to hash these things out. All right, let's start with the claims from Donald Trump of a rigged election. He's mentioned a few things going into this that have made a lot of people nervous, frankly. Is he undermining the Democratic process by saying these sorts of things? I will start with you, John.
You know, I think he's using too broad of a statement when he calls it rigged. I think what he should say is not rigged in terms of the actual voting booths, because we work in elections all the time. It's just simply not the case. But rigged in terms of, is the establishment conspiring to make him lose? I think there is some merit to that. The establishment of the Republican Party doesn't want him to win. The mainstream media establishment arguably doesn't want him to win. In that sense, it might be rigged, but I think right now he's giving a broad overstatement.
And that's where you're seeing this sort of civil war within the Republican establishment. You're having the Ohio Secretary of State coming out yesterday saying that it was, quote, irresponsible for Donald Trump to make these kinds of comments. And I think he's trying to sort of justify a looming loss. If you're looking at the polling now, like there's never been a candidate in modern presidential electoral politics that has come back from such a devastating deficit. And I also think it underscores the fact that this is a candidate who doesn't have an organization on the ground. I mean, for crying out loud, Donald Trump isn't even on the voter guide, the candidate statement in the state of Alaska. You've got Jill Stein and Hillary Clinton on it, but Donald Trump's missing. And I think that really highlights the fact that, like, he just has no organization on the ground in these states.
But he has done pretty well. We have to say that. You just mentioned the Ohio Secretary of State. So let's hear what he actually said about this. And it does give you some insight into what's happening with Republicans and what's happening with this idea of things being rigged, especially for those who are already in office. Let's hear what he has to say.
I can reassure Donald Trump I am in charge of elections in Ohio, and they're not going to be rigged. Our institutions, like our election system, is one of the bedrocks of American democracy. We should not question it or the legitimacy of it.
We should not question it or the legitimacy of it. Do you agree with that statement?
I completely agree.
Okay.
Yeah, no, he's right. Trump is overreaching on this, and for the sake of our democracy, as a Republican, I either hope that Donald Trump wins or he loses by a big margin. Because if it is close, the way he's talking, the Republicans in the Republican Party may burn the system down because they may think that he got robbed.
What happens if Trump wins? I have to ask you both this. What happens if he wins? Is the system still rigged? Do you think he'll still go with that line?
Great point. I mean, if he wins by a wide margin, he may say it was rigged, but he overcame it. He made that argument in the primary that the establishment wanted to rig it in favor of Bush or Rubio, but he overcame that because he won with such sweeping mandates. I think he also would say the Democratic primary was rigged, and he's not incredibly wrong.
But doesn't it make him look somewhat hypocritical, though, if he's saying, like, the electoral process, like the institutions that, like, propel candidates to office are rigged? Like, this is a guy who, like, won through that process of the Republican nomination. So, like, was that process rigged? Like, I get, like, the politics, like the establishment, the endorsements, like on the Democratic side, like some would say the superdelegates, that's a rigged process. Like, I get that, but like the electoral, like ballot box politics, like that process isn't rigged. And I think that's the fine line.
So the question is Trump using this language or rhetoric as a turnout tool for his base? And perhaps he is. I think it's a dangerous line to walk down, but maybe he's trying to use it to turn out those voters to fight against a rigged system, that every vote is going to matter to fight against the rigged system. Maybe that's what he's doing.
Well, generally, every vote does matter. We have seen that in past elections where people lose by small margins, and you go, well, if you had to just come out, you know, maybe it would have been different. Let's talk a little bit about what Melania Trump said. She's making news. She's talked for the first time. We haven't heard from her very much ever since we've heard some of these comments from Donald Trump back in 2005 and these women coming out one by one. She talked about something very specific, and when asked about whether or not he had said this sort of thing around her, she said, I'd never heard it before. It's boys talk. I'm going to let you respond to that, because that's something that Donald Trump himself said, well, it's locker room talk. It's not real. It's just, you know.
Okay, if that's locker room talk, then everything that Donald Trump has said throughout the course of this election is locker room talk. Megyn Kelly, the host at Fox News, has blood coming out of her eyes. He made horrible statements about Heidi Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz, his once rival's wife. I mean, this is a guy who called women pigs and dogs. I mean, this is the kind of rhetoric. It's no different from what we've seen throughout the course of this campaign, and I think it really underscores why he's doing so poorly with women who make up the majority of the electorate.
John, your response?
Yeah, it's no surprise that Donald Trump uses crude language. He has been consistent throughout the primary in that. I particularly like from the interview where she said she has two boys at home, you know, one child and, you know, one named Donald Trump, because this is consistent with his personality. But look, Melania did say he apologized and she forgave him.
Okay. I do want to lastly ask you about Hillary Clinton. He has this point that is made, and to be fair, what have we been talking about this whole time? Donald Trump and his comments and Melania Trump and her comments. But Hillary Clinton is under the microscope right now because of her emails. Is the media sort of not covering that as much because the other stuff is so salacious and people keep talking about it?
And that's the problem. I think that feeds into Trump feeling that he's getting the bad end of the stick here. It's the classic adage, if it bleeds, it leads. And that in any other environment, the WikiLeaks story would be dominant.
Yes.
But in this case, the sex allegations are more salacious and there's human stories to it that they keep bringing out.
Right.
But look, if Trump can keep himself in control, this drip of the WikiLeaks, and there are a lot of questions that have no answers yet from the Clinton Foundation or Clintons.
Both of you, thank you so much for being here. We will continue this argument in the next hour. Thank you so much.
Thank you.